The Jury Daily Show is brought to you, as always, by PayJuryDaily.com. Oh, friends, welcome to the Justin Robert Young Daily Podcasts show, YouTube series, informational program for you to enjoy. Hello. I don't know why, literally right before we started streaming right here, or recording the show, we're streaming live, of course, on twitch.tv/JustinRYoung. I got into a thing where I guess I have a decent Don Pardo impression. If you don't know who Don Pardo is, he's the Saturday Night Live announcer. So you would know by like Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan, Nora Dunn. He died. He is no longer with us. So R.I.P. to one of the greats. But I don't know why. I just, for whatever reason, then just wanted to start saying dictators in history. I just wanted to just Idi Amin and featuring Joseph Stalin, Che Guevara. I don't know. For whatever reason, that really tickled me. I decided to open the show with it, and I am realizing only now what a terrible mistake it was. Let's go ahead and get things started here. We have one story and one story only that I want to talk about. Musical guest, Charlie Manson. It's fucked up. Like, I don't even know why it's funny. I don't know why it's really funny to me, but it just is just, I don't know. If people just want to keep writing it in the chat room, I'll just randomly burst in and yell awful people's names in Don Pardo's voice. All right, here's the story I want to talk about. Woman tricks dozens of Tinder men into showing up for mass dating stunt. For whatever reason, we have an unnatural fascination with dating, online dating on this show. This was a fascinating one. I saw it yesterday on Twitter. It was a big tweet thread. He's actually shout out to BV Dahai, who wrote all about it. But here we go. We're gonna read from the Gizmodo story, as written by Adam Clark Estes. A woman identified as Natasha Apont used Tinder to invite several dozen guys on a simultaneous date in New York City this past Sunday afternoon, leaving her targets bewildered by the stunt. The date turned out to be an event the host called Live Tinder, a real-life game of sorts that resembled a cross between The Bachelorette and Catfish. In the end, it's a hard to pick a winner, but it's looking good for Natasha. So here's what I want. I'll just kind of summarize it for you. Because I read it from this dude, this Twitter dude, who was great. And it was from his perspective. So he, all of a sudden on Tinder, as one does, gets a Tinder match. It's this lady who's like, hey, look, I think you're great. You want to go out for a drink? He's like, okay, sure. She's like, well, shit, sorry. I actually have a big presentation I got to work on for work. Can I just hit you up in like 2 weeks? And he's like, all right, this is a ghosting of all ghostings, right? Whatever. And so 2 weeks later, to his surprise, all of a sudden, old girl pops back into his Tinder. I think she had gotten his number by this point, if we want to be technical. And was like, hey, look, meet me out in this public place. Not rare for Tinder. And we'll go out. Cool. So that's what happens. And he goes and meets her. And he is by a stage, and he noticed that there's a bunch of dudes, and she's like, Oh, okay. I mean, I guess maybe there's some other shit happening. It's New York City. Crazy shit's happening all the time. Not too weird. Next thing you know, who walks up on stage with a microphone but old girl? She says, yo, y'all are here for the same reason. To date me. I hit each and every one of you motherfuckers up on Twitter. And if you would like, I would like to now weed you down to the person that's actually going to date me. Now, here's what I want. I want via email at jurydaily@gmail.com. I want on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, youtube.com/JustinRobertYoung. I want you guys to just give me the one word that describes your initial reaction to that idea. Just your initial reaction. Because we're getting from Stoic Squirrel here in our Twitch chat, horrible person. BS Trans says, bitch. Reverend Buck says, nope. Ninja Steve says, pass. So obviously a bunch of people left. Immediately upon realizing that this fairly regular Tinder interaction was indeed an elaborate ruse, they peaced out. Now, by the way, and this is what I want to focus on. This is all being filmed. All right? So let's go ahead and gather up the things that don't happen by accident. There's a stage in a New York City public park that takes money to rent the stage, time and effort to get the permits, and probably a staff to put it up. You know, a stage is not something that you just, it's not a pop-up tent. You don't just pull it out and it stays there. Then there is a filming crew. Apparently there was also somebody with cue cards. So that is at the very least a production staff of 3 people, 2 of which are specialized talent in that they are able to record on a camera. And these are real cameras. These are not iPhones. So we are now understanding that this is here for a reason. Now, once all the people that initially are I'll tell you what, my man here whose initial account of it I fell in love with, BV Dehai, said that he walked away, but he had to watch what was going on here just to understand and appreciate the fallopian fortitude. His words, not mine. I wish I could take that, but I am goddamn well stealing it. The fallopian fortitude on this woman. So here's what happened. People kind of walked away. Then all of a sudden, she's like, all right, well, everybody who's still here, I'm going to now start eliminating you. So here's what here's what she said. She was going to dismiss the following people. So this is basically like singled out. If you are, old like me, back before Chris Hardwick was a new media celebrity and then a pariah on the mend, Chris Hardwick used to be the host of an MTV dating show called Singled Out. Back before Jenny McCarthy was talking about how you shouldn't vaccinate your kids, she was the co-host of Singled Out, and Singled Out worked like this. You had a eligible bachelor or bachelorette sitting with her face forward and a bunch of single people, and then she would eliminate them based on arbitrary things. Height, weight, interests, stuff like that. So you had to fill out everything on your card, and then eventually you would get down to the rounds. But the big fun was always when she would when somebody would eliminate like half the people and then see cute people walking by, be like, no, you're a smoker. Sorry. So Natasha does this. She says, all right, everybody, men named Jimmy, get the fuck out. Trump supporters, get the fuck out. Men under 5'10", get out. Any men who smoke or drank heavily, get out. Then began the physical challenges. She had them sprint. She had them do push-ups. Like, this was a real thing. Now, if you are like me or you watch my show for long enough, then you understand that the only thing that I'm curious about is who booked this shit. And God bless the Gizmodo. They did the work. Update 5:50 p.m. yesterday. The New York City Parks Department confirmed in an email to Gizmodo that the permit holder for the event was Rob Bliss Creative. According to LinkedIn, Rob Bliss is the founder of an eponymous agency which has led branded campaigns to over 250 million views across YouTube and Facebook without spending a cent on advertising. The brands create viral content that leads to entirely organic national campaigns. So, who this is for, I am sure we will probably find out. Even if it's just for this lady. But you want to know what? You want to know what? I got to give him a hand. I got to give him a hand. That's some good shit. That's some good shit. It gets people talking. Oh, it got people so mad. Oh, it got people so mad. Who, I'll tell you what, Gizmodo would link this to. This is men going their own way. Men going their own way. If you're not familiar with Men Going Their Own Way, it is a men's rights forum. They were not thrilled with it. In fact, they judged it as a mass red pill in New York City. Red pill is when the truth is revealed to you, the fallacy of the world around you as illustrated in The Matrix, where you can take the blue or the red pill. The lies that have permeated so deeply into your existence falls away, and you realize that there are other narratives for which you need to pay attention to. Now, the only other question that I would have, by the way, let me know if you find this to be an example that men are being manipulated by women. Because I would take a wild guess and say that the dudes that stayed probably had more to do with the fact of, like, what else am I going to do? Right? And also you see cameras. Maybe it's for a TV show. Who knows? Like, it's either that or I go eat a half sub at Blimpie's. So fuck it. If the lady wants me to do push-ups, I'm going to bring out the guns. I want to know if anybody got paid, if there are any paid or reality talent to make sure that there were at least those 10 dudes doing push-ups and stuff like that. I'm curious about that. Otherwise, though, hell, it seems like harmless fun to me. Maybe there was some hurt feelings, but otherwise, whatever. Seemed all right. Let's go ahead and get to your emails. JuRYDaily@gmail.com. Or you can go ahead and leave a comment right here on the YouTube pages if that's where you are watching it. We talked about, I was shocked to hear yesterday that to get hired as a cop in Canada, you have to take a polygraph test. This seemed fucking insane to me, considering the fact that polygraphs aren't admissible in court because they're, not real. But our diamond Canadian cop wrote in, I'm aware of at least a few others that still impose this test in Canada, and I'll briefly explain why it's still used to my knowledge. In the justice system, police are essentially professional witnesses. Police go from dispatched calls to traffic stops and could be involved in giving people criminal or monetary penalties. We are expected to uphold a strong degree of integrity and truthfulness to maintain public trust and confidence in the justice system. If we are ever found lying in court, your career is essentially over. We can no longer be trusted to tell a judge what we did and what we saw at any point. As well, we'll most likely go to jail if we lie on the stand, and it's a big deal and is another deterrent for those trying to fix an error. Just own your fuck up and move on. I know that some officers, although it's very rare, get canned for lying. The system works most of the time, though it's not something that gets advertised generally. So the polygraph interview ends up being one way of determining somebody's truthfulness from the start. Perhaps somebody smoked pot well prior to it being legal, stolen some small items, been drunk and disorderly, and other fairly minor problems. If you own it, it's not super serious. You'll likely move on. Granted, you haven't done that in a while either. You admit to something serious, you'll likely be arrested at your interview. I've heard credible stories of it happening. Well, here's my thing, though, Diamond Canadian Cop. If you're worried about what they can say on the stand, then you shouldn't be using a polygraph, because that can't be used on the stand. Furthermore, I get doing like a very stern interview and maybe a little pageantry to kind of scare away people who might lie. But also what you're only ensuring is that you are bringing in either people who always tell the truths or sociopaths who can pass a polygraph test. Because you can pass a polygraph test if you practiced enough at it, or you are a cold-blooded sociopath who is used to lying through their teeth. Zax's EMK actually asked the question, which is whether or not a sociopath whether or not a polygraph, Freudian slip, is admissible in Canadian court. Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck y'all do up there. Christopher, writing about my impressions, says that your Tim Burton needs to come out of hiding. I don't remember doing a Tim Burton. If anybody can remember or find an episode where I did a Tim Burton impression, then please, please, please send it to me, because I would love to hear my Tim Burton impression. I didn't remember that I did one. Daniel writes, "Hey, JuRY, just listening to Monday's up and wanted to mention that I love your impressions and I'd love to hear more. Really takes me back to watching his segment at my Christian high school." I don't know whether or not Daniel's talking about Limbaugh or Alex Jones, but they'll both be around. Carl writes, "Listening to the Alex Jones impression from last Thursday, I think that you missed a very important part. You forgot to close by telling people that, what you need to do if you want to support independent media, all the free-thinking libertarians, Christians, under attack by the cabal of globalists and socialists that are trying to take over our country, very obviously an alignment, an axis between Silicon Valley, Washington, D.C., Moscow, Beijing. This is all documented on Infowars.com. If you want to see the very, very clear path, follow the money. Folks, it ain't hard. They're not even hiding it anymore. You know, you look at where all of the major media players, the dying mainstream media, because they can't keep you asleep anymore. They can't. They're trying to. They've tried for decades, but they are now failing. The failing legacy media. New York Times, Washington Post, Disney XD. These are all the outlets that are trying to keep you asleep. They can't anymore, so now they're panicking. If you want to support the freedom fighters here that are trying to do our best to make sure that free discourse, free speech continues in this country, then I need you to go over to InfoWarsStore.com. Alpha Male Packs, now available, low price of $69.99. And do me a favor, set up auto repeat. Make sure that you are getting fish oil, the likes of which you've never seen. I can tell you personally that I look in the eye of every fish that we turn into fish oil. I look that scaly patriot right in his eye and I say, are you willing to die for this cause? Thomas Jefferson said that the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of tyrants. I believe that the brains of liberty need to be refreshed with the flesh of fish. Ken writes, just for laughs when the CBC had a sitcom pitch contest, I figure I can break into Canadian TV more easily. It's kind of like the Christian rock of television, you know? Anyway, I spent months putting together a pilot with a show Bible and a top sheet budget, everything. Needless to say, my show got rejected. But that's not the rejection I wanted to write about. I sent a question about what to do with my rejected script to this guy named Bryce for a show called After Things, and I got nothing back. What's up with that? Bryce thinks he's too good for me? Seriously, though, what do you think? I could ship it around. I hear that without an agent, it's a waste of time. Ken, take that idea, write more. Write books. Write sketches. Shoot sketches. Move to Los Angeles. Like, that's the lesson. But if you're going to do something from your house, from Canada, I mean, if you're going to do the Canadian version of that, then move to Toronto. If you live in Toronto, then move closer to where television's made. Start hanging out at bars where television writers are. Otherwise, write books. Write ebooks. The more you can move those, the more people will pay attention to you. Remember, this is like Brian's favorite thing. The world moves because you can do something for somebody else. Every day, you should be thinking, not how can I please a gatekeeper, but what can I have in my bushel that I can offer a gatekeeper for passage in? Oh, is it Vancouver? Not Toronto? Vancouver. Gibson wrote in about how he got yelled at by a charade, by somebody in politics about how only campaign donors' kids get to be Senate pages. I asked him whether or not it was somebody in the page program or Sherrod Brown's office. Gibson on YouTube commented, it was a woman with the Sherrod Brown campaign. She sounded pretty pissed when she picked up the phone, though. So my guess is that she was taking some anger out on me and doesn't normally drop truth bombs on idiot teens who call in. Love it. Love people who just fucking keep it 100% totally real. That wraps it up for Tuesday's edition of the JuRY Daily Show. A reminder that our producers are the Jen, PD Rave, Non-Specific, Rock and Roll Martian, Joe Acosta, and Will. Support this show and even have your name mentioned like they just did by going over to payjurydaily.com. Email jurydaily@gmail.com. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, justinryoung.com. And join the conversation at diamondclub.reddit.com. That about wraps it up for this version of the show. Until tomorrow, please. No.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.